Hey, Mama. Welcome to the Working Moms Playbook, the go-to podcast for moms balancing careers and babies. I'm your host, Antonia DePace, former editor, current marketing maven, and mom of one. Each week, we're breaking down the systems, mindsets, and support every working mom needs to thrive, whether it be at work, at home, or everywhere in between. So let's get into it. Welcome back, everybody, to this week's episode of the Working Moms Playbook. I'm your host, Antonia DePace, and this week we are talking all about sleep, which we just do not get a lot of as working moms. We really just don't. But I'm so excited to have Amber on. She is a pediatric sleep consultant, also a registered nurse, mom of two, and you found your true calling as a pediatric sleep consultant after the birth of your first son, correct? Because you were like really faced with all of these realities of infant sleep and all of that fun stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, I just hit the ground running with it.
So that's what we're going to be talking about today, you guys, like everything from with sleep when it comes to newborn sleep tips to toddlers and beyond. So no matter what stage you are in, there is going to be something for you to relate and information for you to take a lot of value. I know I'm going to probably get a lot of value out of this because my firstborn, he gives us a run for our money. But welcome. Welcome, Amber. I'm so excited to have you on.
Yeah, I'm so excited to be here.
I'd love to start by asking you a little bit more about that experience with your firstborn that led you into becoming a sleep consultant.
Yeah, absolutely. So a little bit about me, like you said, I am a registered nurse. I also am a nurse educator. I have my master's in nursing education and leadership. So I've been doing bedside nursing for about 14 years. I've been educating nursing and doing nursing clinicals for about 4 years. Had my first son 3 years ago. He just turned 3 in May. And I was breastfeeding all hours of the night, Googling in the morning, 2 a.m., what's right, what's not right. Found all these different things, and I kind of made my own generalized sleep plan for myself. And then next thing we knew, we had our second, and I initiated my sleep plan that I had generated for my first with my second. Pretty early on. We started early sleep habits, and I'll go more into what that looks like for a newborn in a little bit. And I found that it really worked out. I had no idea that there was a such thing as a pediatric sleep consultant until I started joining all these mom groups. And then I started answering questions and being like, I know the answer to this. I know the answer to this. And then, of course, when I started joining those groups, your algorithm floods of sleep, sleep, sleep. So then I found an evidence-based research program. It's the Institute of Pediatric Sleep and Parenting, where I did my courses. I am pediatric sleep certified. I'm also a certified newborn sleep specialist, and I am also a potty training specialist, which is a whole another beast in and out of itself.
Wow.
Yeah. So I found my passion. Nursing, I love nursing, but with the two littles, it just time-wise with the hours wasn't really working. So I did my pediatric sleep consulting courses, and I found a way to be able to integrate my compassion for caring for others while I'm going through something relevant with these families I'm helping in my life as well. So yeah, it's been a great journey.
That's amazing. And I feel like it's so great to have access to someone like you because there's just so much advice, so many books, like so many methods. Everyone is different. Everything, each method works for a different person, doesn't work for some. Each kid is different. And then on top of all of it, now you also go on TikTok and these influencers are posting that like their child was sleeping 12 hours through the night, like starting at 3 weeks of age. And there's a lot of pressures as a mom, and you're already tired as it is. And it creates a lot of pressure because you're like, why isn't my kid doing that? So it's really nice to, I'm sure, like have a sounding board for a lot of your clients. Like it's nice to have that and to be able to not only like guide with sleep, but have that specific guide for that specific family and like what works best for them. Because while there's always a spine to everything, right? There's always like a backbone plan. I'm sure that you have to make like specific changes or edits depending on the family because each family's different and each baby's different.
Well, 100%. And I'm so glad that you brought this up because actually I was at a shower yesterday and somebody had asked me, well, what's your preferred method? Sleep, sleep
Hmm.
training, because everyone thinks sleep consultant, they think sleep training. Sleep training is
Hmm.
a very wide term. Sleep training is whatever you want it to be, per se. Really, as a sleep consultant,
Hmm.
I am here. A method is a very small piece of the puzzle. People don't realize that there is so much and that sleep is a complex thing, especially for newborns and toddlers and infants. It's very complex at all ages because they're going through so many developmental milestones. And then people also don't realize, well, there's different type of parenting styles. There's different type of temperaments for these children. So how are we going to come up in the big picture with a way to help support your children and your parenting style where
Hmm.
you feel comfortable in what you're doing? So, yes, people can go on Chat GBT and be like, what's the best method to use? But Chat GBT is great if it works for you, but there's a lot of families that need the whole picture looked at, and families don't realize, or people just don't realize that there's so much more to sleep consulting than just a method. So I'm happy that you brought that up
Right,
because
right.
the method is just a very small part of what I do.
So then let's like get further into, well, I guess we should define first because there's like a realm of specialists for new parents that like we don't necessarily know about or don't necessarily have access to right away that we all wish we did like a year later. And
Right.
I feel like a pediatric sleep consultant is like one of those things. So why don't you explain exactly what you do that goes beyond just the method as you kind of just hinted at, so then that way listeners really have an idea of what a pediatric sleep consultant can help with.
Yeah, absolutely. So, first and foremost, sleep is always something that's important to us as adults, along with our children. Sleep is restorative, it
Hmm.
promotes muscle growth, tissue repair. We need to be able to provide sleep for our children to be able to hit these milestones that they're able to hit while they are actually sleeping. Um, but for me, what I
Hmm.
specifically like to dive into is the prenatal education of sleep. I am starting to launch workshops and reach out to daycares to be able to talk to families one on one with these moms and families before they even have their children so they know what to expect when it comes to sleep. Because when we are talking about newborn
Hmm.
sleep, I had no idea what I was expecting. I'm like, I'm a nurse. I used to work night shift. How hard could this be? And then the first 3 nights, I look at my husband and I'm like, what are we doing? This is harder than night shift. Like, I have
Yeah.
no idea. How hard could this be? I take care of people as my career. Like, how hard could taking care of a newborn be? And I'm like, oh my gosh, I feel like I just got smacked in the face with reality. Because no one prepares you for the sleep aspect of it. So
Yep.
I enjoy educating families who are bringing on newborns into their family about why their newborn is waking frequently, when their circadian rhythm starts to develop, when their hormones start to produce, when you can start expecting longer stretches during the night. So it's all this
Hmm.
prenatal education and then tips and tricks to help be ahead of these things to help guide your newborn into healthy sleep habits. Um, and while we do these things, it's all while we are keeping the bond with our baby. First and foremost, we want to bond with our babies. All the tips and
Hmm.
tricks that I'm giving newborn families is never put your baby down and wait an interval amount of time to respond. That is not what we do with newborns. They need to be responded to
Hmm.
immediately. But one of my favorite tips to give parents is put your baby down when they're awake, when they tolerate it, and see what they do. If you put them down and they're not tolerating it, pick them back up, comfort them, do what you have to do, and try again later. putting them out of your arms early not only allows them to get used to being out of your arms, it allows them as they progressively get older to hit other developmental milestones as well, such as physical therapy milestones, occupational milestones, and sleep milestones. So that is such a big piece of advice that I love giving parents. But again, it's also when your child tolerates being out of your arms because they are adapting into this new world and it's a hard transition. Some transition easier than others. But we also need to know realistically what we can expect and what we can do for the newborns.
Right. And it's such a crazy time too, because you're just like the newborn's everything and you're everywhere and you're adjusting to sleep, you're adjusting to a new schedule, especially if it's your first. It is very hectic. So, just doing simple things, I'm sure it's just like easier to integrate instead of worrying about like a whole sleep schedule that can almost like add more stress to the situation.
100%. You will never get a sleep schedule with a newborn. Their sleep is erratic, it's inconsistent, it's very all over the place. Short sleep is completely normal at this age. Like you see, well, my
Hmm.
newborn is napping all day long, but then typically when your newborn is napping all day long, then they're awake all night long. So there are different ways in the newborn
Yeah.
phase that we can kind of flip-flop. That's that day-night confusion. People don't realize that they don't have their internal
Hmm.
clock once they're born. Their internal clock doesn't start kicking in until 6, 7, 8 weeks. This is their circadian rhythm. Um, so that is why they have their quote unquote day and night confusion. And many parents don't realize that. They just think it's something that we should be able to flip flop and
Yeah.
babies should be able to start sleeping through the night. But there are ways that we can help support, develop their circadian rhythm right from the jump start to help your baby not be confused from day and night.
So what are some of those ways that you can help with that circadian rhythm,
Yeah,
especially in the beginning?
in the beginning, the circadian rhythm to be able to help them develop and kind of figure things out is you want to be able to have them in the light during the day. You want to mimic day for them during the day.
Mm-hmm.
Have the naps with the light on, with the TV on, with your dogs barking like they typically do during the day. The hustle and bustle. If you're having them nap in a pack and play, have it be in the living room. This is going to help them realize, okay, this is daytime. Um, and then once you start transitioning to nighttime, then you can start to dim the lights a little bit, have your house a little bit quieter, and start to mimic nighttime for your baby. We need to mimic those
Mm-hmm.
rhythms for them so they can start to adjust to what day and night looks like. Um, and also, getting your child outside during the day has so many great benefits. I love stroller walks. Stroller walks also help get the baby out of your arms and into a different environment for a possible nap, which is also a great thing because it also frees up your arms. Contact naps are not bad, but a lot of families, after the first month, they're like, well, I can't be contact nap stuck anymore every single nap. So I love stroller naps, especially because if
Mm-hmm.
you're finishing up your walk and they're napping in the stroller, you have your free hands to go do whatever you may have to do, and then your baby is still napping.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and also to go off of the circadian rhythm, so we produce cortisol, which is what wakes us up in the morning as adults, and we produce melatonin, which is what starts to kick in when the lights go dim, everything begins to get quieter in the house to say and signal to our bodies, hey, it's almost bedtime, you're going to start to get sleepy, so you can sleep through the night. These hormones are not produced until 6, 7, 8 weeks again. So you're looking at the 3, 4 month period until the baby internally is really starting to develop more adult like ways to be able to help their sleep patterns. So they're really fully dependent on us for a really long time to be able to help mimic day and night. I am also very big at following wake windows. Wake windows are a general guideline, and I'm sure
Mm-hmm.
everyone at this point has heard about wake windows if you have a child. I didn't hear about them until
Mm-hmm.
I had my first child. So, of course, every child is different. Every child's sleep needs are different. Some need more sleep, some need less sleep. But a newborn can really only tolerate being awake for about a half hour, an hour at the most, and then they need some sleep.
Mm-hmm.
When we start passing by these wake times and babies aren't getting to sleep within these wake windows, they start becoming very stressed and overtired. And when babies, infants, toddlers start becoming stressed and overtired, it actually makes them not able to really settle down and rest to be able to get to sleep. So like I said, wake windows,
Mm-hmm.
they're a good guideline to use, and you can also use sleepy cues, especially for your newborns. You know, the yawning, the rubbing of the eyes,
Mm-hmm.
the redness of the eyes start to come in. Um, but also using an appropriate wake time is extremely helpful. And I usually say when you follow the wake times plus or minus 30 minutes of the guided wake time, because again, every child is different, but I think that's a very big piece of it too. Some people are like, my newborn's been up for 3 hours, but
Yeah.
I can't get them to sleep. Well, at this point, they're typically overtired, and then they don't know how to settle because now their bodies are so stressed, and then it's up to us to settle them.
Mm-hmm.
Um, is it normal
Right,
sometimes for
right. Yeah,
babies?
wake windows were really helpful for
Yeah,
us.
it's so helpful. And I found from both of my children, the appropriate time for them, and I would go and put them down in their crib before they even started showing sleepy cue signs, because then they're more
Mm-hmm.
accepting to go to sleep. Sometimes when we just rely on their cues, sometimes I find then they're already overtired at that point. So I
Mm-hmm.
suggest trying to
Yeah.
use a little bit of their cues, but especially when they're young, more so their wake time, because their cues could also be so subtle. So what if we miss their cues and now we're running into a very overtired child?
Right. And then that never works out for a variety of reasons, no matter the stage.
It makes everyone so
So
frustrated.
it does. It does. It causes temper tantrums once they get older. It causes missed naps. I mean, it's a whole thing. Let's lead into infant sleep. I think we spoke about newborn sleep, but let's get into that like 4 to 12 month range. Like,
Yeah.
what can we expect in this range? Of course, there's that big, scary, like 4 month sleep regression that parents are all like, we're all like, oh my God, when is it going to hit? What is it going to look like? But yeah, like what should we expect during that range? What should sleep typically look like? And also, like, what can we start to implement more that like we weren't able to implement in newborn stages?
So with the infant sleep, it's everyone is terrified of the 4 month sleep regression. Knock on wood, I was very fortunate with my first son. He hit every regression swimmingly and had no issues. My second child, he hit the every single regression, but based off of our consistency, I really feel like we knew what to expect with the regressions. They would last a total of 4 days, and then they lasted a total of 3 nights with us being consistent. We knew what to expect. And it's very important because the word regression is thrown around, but the 4 month sleep regression is actually a very big developmental progression for our children. Their whole sleep cycle is changing, and their sleep cycle is now transforming more into an adult sleep cycle. Um, So the sleep cycle is becoming much more matured. They now have their cortisol and their melatonin kicking in. So the best advice that I can start to give you for infant sleep is being able to put your child down awake to let them fall asleep. With
Mhm.
newborns, we rock them, we feed them to sleep, we do all the things to get them to sleep. And that is okay. That is normal. That is expected. That is what our newborns need. But now, as the infants are getting older and developing more sleep patterns and more of an adult sleep cycle, putting them down awake is extremely important because it allows them, one, to gain the skill of being able to fall asleep on their own. And two, it allows them to be aware of where they're falling asleep. Imagine falling asleep somewhere and being in such a deep sleep and waking up, and now you're in a different place. You're probably going to get scared and overwhelmed and panic too. Well, that's what our children do when they fall asleep in our arms, and now we transfer them to the crib, and now they're waking up in the middle of the night and they're screaming. It's because they're not where they were when they fell asleep. That's scary. So then
Yeah.
this is where you can really hone in quote unquote sleep training and find a method that best works for the parenting style and the temperament of the child to try and help baby connect sleep cycles and being able to put your child down awake so they can drift off to sleep. So that's like the biggest challenge because we keep feeding, rocking our babies to sleep, and that's great. Like I said, that's what's normal and expected when they are newborns. But to really gain healthy, independent sleep habits, the biggest thing is being able to get them down awake so they understand their environment. They gain the skill of being able to independently sleep. And once they're able to fall asleep on their own, that transitions in the middle of the night when they wake up, they're able to fall back to sleep on their own.
That's like great advice because it is so important. And a lot of parents don't realize like it is scary to think about falling asleep in one place and waking up entirely in a different place. I mean, that's like a lot of people's worst nightmare, right? As
Right.
if you're like sleepwalk and you don't know how you got there. I think it's important here to mention or to note too, and maybe you can add to this that like it is like I feel like it's very important to implement like exactly what you're saying, but then also as like someone who my John is very very determined. He has always been very reactive to regressions and developmental milestones. And I kind of, I think back to our 4 to 12 month stretch. And I remember this one specific time, and I think I want to say he was like around 6 months, maybe seven. And I definitely did the big no no. I breastfed to sleep. I still do it. But there was one point where he would be like fast asleep in our arms. It wouldn't matter if it was me or my husband. So, like, it had nothing to do with the boob. And as soon as you would transfer him into the crib, it was like clockwork. The second his body would touch that mattress,
Mm-hmm.
he would wake up and it was becoming frustrating, right? Because at night you're like watching your evening get smaller and smaller
Yep.
and shorter and shorter. And then before you know it, it's like 9 o'clock. You haven't gotten to wind down. You haven't, gotten to do anything. You've been switching back and forth with your husband or partner, and no one can figure out how to put the baby down. And in those moments, I I truly just like stopped stressing out, and we would just like let him fall asleep on the couch with us, and then we would bring him up at the end of the night, which I know is probably like a big no-no, but I think it's important to mention it because it kind of goes along with the fact of like knowing your own kid and also like monitoring your own stress levels because like I mean he did it every night for like 2 weeks
Right.
and then it stopped and then we were good again, but it was just like it wasn't worth the fight at one point,
It
it
is
was like so stressful, we were getting no time
right.
to ourselves.
And it is so stressful. And I want to mention, because you
It's
made
so hard.
it is so
Yeah.
hard. And it's so hard, and there's no appropriate rule book. And like we've been saying, every family is different, every parent is different, every child is different. And like
Mm-hmm.
you nailed it on the head. You know your child best. You know what you need to do.
Mm-hmm.
I just really want to stress, because you said now it's a bad habit. There is no bad habit. There really isn't. Because look, what
Okay, it makes me feel better.
no, because look, using a sleep consultant is great for some families. It's not great for other families, and that is completely okay. A, a sleep
Hmm.
consultant should not tell you, well, this is a bad habit. This is what we have to get rid of. We have to sit down and look at your goals as a family and say, okay, well, are you bothered that you're breastfeeding your child to sleep? And is it affecting them to where they can't connect their sleep cycles? If you are able to breastfeed your child, if they're of infant
Hmm.
age, toddler age, whatever age they are, and they are able to go to sleep and sleep the whole night away, breastfeed your child to sleep. That is fine. It is not like a bad habit. But sometimes it just becomes too much on the mom when it's now month 9. They're completely dependent on the breastfeeding to go to sleep, and
Mm,
now to get back to sleep in the middle of the night. And that's where we have to make adjustments. But also, there's families that are completely
right.
okay with that. And that's where you jump into the families that are co sleeping. Does the AAP recommend co-sleeping?
Hmm.
No, but families need to do what works best for them. And as a sleep consultant, I am here to help guide you to the goals that you want in a safe manner. Is co-sleeping recommended?
Hmm.
No, but I will educate you on why it's not recommended. But if this is what is best for you and your family, this is how we're going to do it safely to make sure you're getting the goals that you need and what works best for your family. Um, so I also think that's a really
Hmm.
big stigma for a sleep consultant, is that we come in and say, this is exactly what you're doing wrong, and this is what we're going to fix. They're truly, and I'm sorry, I love that you said the word bad habit, because I really want to touch on it, that there's no bad habit.
Yeah.
We're all doing what we can to survive. We're doing our motherly instincts, our fatherly instincts, and we're doing in the moment what works best for our family. And then when it's no longer working best for us, then that's when I jump in and I help you fix it. I'm not fixing a bad habit. I'm fixing something that has now outgrown the family. And we do this to be able to better
Hmm.
the family. Because if you're not sleeping through the night and you're not
Right.
sleeping through the day, then I know how I am when I didn't sleep for 3 days straight, and then it affects my parenting, it affects my bond with my children. Um, and then that's when it becomes an issue. I'm not here to say everyone needs a sleep consultant. I'm just simply here to help families reach the goals that they need.
Hmm. Yeah. And I mean, I think that's so important to touch on because there is a lot of fear, right? There's a lot of fear. And then there's also a lot of, it's fear of judgment, really, right? From like a lot of parents and a lot of moms, like sometimes seeking like more professional help, you get scared that you've done everything wrong. You've messed everything up, right? Like your kid's never going to sleep. You set these boundaries forever. It's so irrational. It really is when you say it out loud. But I know that just like in general for parents, like that's just such a huge guilt. Like you just carry that because you don't want to mess things up. And um, so I think that's like something very important to know. There really are no bad habits when it comes to like sleep with infants, and it's just you have to do what works best for your family, but implementing a method or some sort of spine or some sort of schedule or routine obviously makes things better.
Oh my gosh, it makes things so much better. And to hop back on the infant sleep, there's so many things developmentally going on with them. And when they do hit these regressions, it's important that we support them and do what works best for your family. If it is getting them to sleep on the couch and then transferring them into the crib, but it's also family based. What works for you? We want to support them every way possible. But we also want to make sure we're responding consistently and stick
Mm-hmm.
with how we respond. I can't stress enough on consistency. Because think about if you respond to your child different every single night, you are lack of sleep, you're responding differently. And then now a week has gone by and you're like, wait a second, 3 days ago, this really worked well. That's what worked best. Um, and
Mm-hmm.
then now you're confused. So think about how confused the child is. So when we're not responding consistently to our children, they're just becoming confused with what to expect. And when they don't know what to expect, they just protest and get fussy because now they start to know what they want. And if they're not getting what they want, that's when they're going to start to cry and do all the tricks in the book to be able to get what they want. Um, so, yeah, it's really important to make sure we respond consistently with whatever we choose to do.
So then when it comes to working moms, I mean, I could go on and on about the fact that we don't get enough time off from work, but it's always varying depending on the situation, your workplace, and, so on and so forth. But of course, being the Working Moms Playbook podcast, many of our listeners are, in fact, working moms. So, what sleep challenges do you see most often when moms return to work? Like, what are they really coming to you for? What are they struggling with when it comes to their infant sleep?
With their infant sleep, a lot of the time it's because now their children are going to daycare. The daycare might not have routine, they might not be regimented. So I can always help with the sleep plan for the daycare and even do a phone call conference with the daycare and go over the sleep plan for that individual child. Also, it because as they developmentally grow, their wake windows get shorter, their nap transitions get shorter, and everything. Once you feel like you get a hang of something, something's always changing. Well, a lot of the working moms are like, well, I'm not getting home until 6 o'clock at night, and I feel like I'm not spending enough time with my child, but they're ready for bed at 7 o'clock at night. How can I maybe extend a little bit more time?
Mm-hmm.
And that's what comes down to really looking at the age, their development, looking at their schedule, where can we shift times to really be able to get the type of time that the parents want with their children. It's also very important to continue to remind parents that whatever is going on now is very temporary. Um, so that short amount of time you're
Mm-hmm.
getting with your child, it's frustrating. And I think, gosh, my husband, when my first son, he was maybe only 6 months old, and my husband drives an hour and a half to and from work every day. So by the time he was getting home, he was maybe spending an hour, hour and a half with our son, and then he was going right to bed. And the best thing I learned was this is very temporary. And we tried everything to extend time and it just wasn't working. And it was making our nights harder.
Mm-hmm.
So everything that is going on right now is temporary. And once you figure something out, it's going to change again. So to me, yes, it's hard when you get that little time with your child, but you have to make the most of it in the moments. Um, it's easier said than done, but
Mm-hmm.
I've tried to tell myself every day not to stress about the little things that we can no longer stress about and focus on spending and being intentional with our time with our children because that time is so short and their schedules are constantly changing. So
Mm-hmm.
even though you feel like you have that little bit of time now, it will get better and it will change as the months go on and their needs and sleep needs change as well.
Back to what we referenced earlier, it is just not always perfect. It's not always what it looks like. As soon as you think you've gotten into a rhythm of something, something changes and it goes completely down downhill. So let's talk more about toddler sleeps.
It is such a wide range, that 1 to 3 year old range. There's so much happening mentally, physically, so many changes coming up. They're learning to walk, they're learning to talk, they're understanding more. Fears are starting to kick in when you get closer to that 3 year old range. So there is so much going on with toddler sleep, and I will always go back to, if you have a strong foundation from the beginning, it helps guide your transitions throughout this whole process. Are you going to hit obstacles and bumps in the road? Of course, we hit bumps in the road. But building a strong foundation early on can really help set your toddler up for these transitions, these developmental milestones. But also, as we get into these toddler ages, some toddlers are going to be now looking from 2 naps to 1 nap. When are we going to be transitioning to that 1 nap? Then we start looking into, when are we going to transition our toddler into a different bed? That's scary for a lot of parents. It's a big, scary transition. We start getting into separation anxiety. We have our preferred parent. How are we going to tackle that obstacle with the other parent getting the child down for bed? So there's so many different things that we're tackling with these toddlers, so many different ways to tackle them. And then it becomes a game for the toddlers sometimes, because they're trying to find their independence. They're trying to find their voice. They're trying to, press their boundaries a little bit, see how far they can get. And it's up to us as the parents to really set our boundaries. But setting our boundaries doesn't mean that we're being super strict, saying no and doing this, but how are we going to make our toddlers enjoy it while setting our boundaries? My favorite way of doing this is allowing our toddlers the power of choice.
Right.
The power of choice for our toddlers can go such a long way. It allows them to feel in control when they have an option, but as us, as the parent, we allow the options within our boundaries. Say, I'm pretty strict with 1 book for nighttime for both of my toddlers. Because if I start getting into, one more book, and then the other kid wants another book, then I'm like, it's an hour and a half drawn out process. So I'm very strict with 1 book, that's my boundary. And if you want to pick 2 books, okay, what book do you want to read tonight? What book do you want to leave out for tomorrow morning? When you wake up, we can read this book in the morning. Things like that. What pajamas do you want to wear? Do you want to have your milk before you take your bath, or take your bath before you have your milk? Allowing them these power of choice, but it's all a part of the same routine every single night, allows them to be like, okay, I'm getting ready for bed, but I'm allowed to figure out how I want that to look.
Right. Well, and I think a lot of the choices you're giving too aren't yes or no choices, which is important to highlight, because I know I can fall into that hole very quickly. We're in that stage too with toddlers, and it's like the choices that you just presented as those examples, I think it's very important to note. Like, they're not really yes or no choices, they're this or that choices, which is a lot different and can almost really set you up for success, I think, on a positive
100%, because I fell into that trap too. My toddler would be like, no, I'm not ready for a nap. And it's like, this is what we're going to do. How do you want to do it? And then we're going to go and lay down. And then it's like the transition goes so much smoother. And it's such a learning curve for us as parents, because we're so used to yes, no questions, but really how we rephrase things and make them feel in charge can really set a different tone.
You did touch on the transitioning from a crib to a toddler bed. Obviously, there's a lot of fears that go around that. John, we transitioned him to his toddler bed. He was just ready, but I mean, there's fears around, are they now going to have the power to get up if they don't want to take the nap? Or what's really that best method to transition our
So
toddlers from a crib
the
to a
best
toddler
method
bed?
that I can say is everyone's different. We need to make sure first and foremost that we're putting safety at the forefront for our children. And if you genuinely feel that your child is ready to make that switch into the bed, we need to make sure that the bed is low, the outlets are covered, all the clutter is put away. Knobs on the inside of your child's door are very underrated. Use them. Use them if you are scared of your child getting out of bed. Set that visual boundary for your child. It's not to be cruel, it's to be safe for them. So first and foremost, we always want to make sure that our children are safe before we make the transition. You want to make sure that you're making that transition when they can be safely unsupervised. If your child is getting excited for a toddler bed, your child no longer likes the crib. I've actually, in my experience, have seen younger children around the 18-20-month-old mark make the transition a lot smoother to like a floor bed for children and infants that were co-sleeping. Because the co-sleeping, they're so used to this big space, and then you're trying to transition them now into a crib. That confinement seems to make them feel a lot more scared. So they tend to actually transition well to a floor bed just through experience. That's what I've been seeing. But if your child likes the crib and they're not climbing out of it and they're safe, I recommend keeping them as long as you can, close to the 3-year mark, only because at that 3-year mark, mentally, developmentally, they're starting to learn, yes, I should do this. Yes, I shouldn't do that. Their impulse control is getting a little bit better. So you should start to see more success without them having to get out of bed around that age. And a big thing, because I feel like parents think this is cruel as well, but closing the bedroom door. It makes a big difference. And again, it's not to be cruel, but think about your toddler's brain. If that door is open, that's more inviting for them to get up out of their bed and try and see what's going on. Where one, if it's closed, one, that's a fire safety as well to keep the door closed. But if it's closed, most children, if their room is dark, don't want to get up in the dark and mosey around. So that's something to keep in mind as well. I do have a crib to bed transition guide. If anybody's interested, please reach out because I'd be more than happy to get you over that guide. Yes.
Perfect. So then let's go into nap drops. What are some of those signs that parents can look out for?
18 months old, you still might have some children who are doing 2 naps. You might have some children who are dropping that 1 nap and just doing 1 nap. So when a child is dropping a nap or signs that it is time to drop a nap, they just start to stay awake longer. Their wake window becomes longer during the day. If you're trying to put them down for a nap and all of a sudden they're fighting, resisting nap time, it's taking a lot longer for them to get down, that's a sign. If you're still doing 2 naps and then now all of a sudden they're starting to have early morning wakings, it's like you just said, they're starting to get that too much daytime sleep and now they're starting to wake up earlier in the morning. So those are some ways that we can try and tell if a child is ready to drop a nap. I also want to make sure that it's clear that just because you drop a nap doesn't mean that your child might not need like a little power nap in the evening to get to bedtime. Or if you drop a nap, it might have to push bedtime up a little bit sooner for a little bit because it might take your child a little bit time to adjust. Every child's different. Everyone, their sleep demands are decreasing as they get older, which is why we see these nap drops. But it might take a little bit for them to really get comfortable and tolerate dropping to 1 nap. So we need to pay attention to our children, watch their cues. Are they getting irritable? Are they getting fussy? And just because you went 4 days with one nap doesn't mean you can't offer a second nap, or make sure you increase that bedtime. A lot of people think increasing a bedtime is going to create an earlier wake. But actually, if we push off that bedtime, that's also going to increase an earlier wake because of the hormones that are being released. They're not going to be able to get fully settled for a full solid night's sleep. So you'll actually see more early morning wakings the more we push bedtime back versus trying to get them an earlier bedtime.
Amazing. So then some final questions here, but what's one piece of sleep advice that you tend to give parents, but that parents tend to resist, even though it really, really works once they actually
Consistency is, we all think we can do it. We all think that we can do it, but it's really hard, especially when you have children who are in the toddler ages and they are more so set in their ways and they are protesting and finding their voice. Because the first night, if you're trying to change something, is different and they're like, okay, what's going on here? The second night is usually worse than the first night because they're like, oh, wait, like this is really happening. A change is really happening. The third night can go either way. And then usually by the fourth night, remaining very consistent in your responses, whatever you're trying to do, then we really start to see some progress. But it's really hard to remain being consistent those first 3 to 4 nights because our children are protesting, our children are crying, and it can be very exhausting for the parents with whatever they are trying to do. So it's hard. It's hard, and really remaining consistent is the key part of success, and success looks at different for everybody, so it all depends on what you're looking for.
Right. I think that's like definitely the hardest, staying consistent, not only schedule wise, but sometimes it's just so easy to do what you were already doing, especially when you're already tired and you have a work schedule. But it's like, it's really about looking at that larger picture, I think.
100%, because it is so easy to just go get your child and bring them into bed, and that's fine if that's working for you and your family. But a lot of the times there comes a point where now it's becoming exhausting for you, it's exhausting for them, and you just need a change. And when you need that change, it's that consistency part that it's hard because change doesn't happen overnight.
For those listeners who want to get in contact with you,
Instagram handle is at sleep2grow_. So it's sleep and then the number 2 grow _. And then my website is sleep2grow.net. Again, it's the number 2. You are welcome to DM me, follow me, schedule a free 15-minute consultation call because there are so many things going on with sleep. I'm also doing some virtual workshops coming up in the near future. I'm actually about to have my 3rd child at the end of August.
Amazing. All of the wonderful information, no matter the stage. So everybody be sure to go follow along.
Yep, all welcome. I'm happy to help.
I know I will be. Yeah, sleep is just so hard and there's so much information out there. So finding a trusted advisor is really important because otherwise it's so stressful.
Yeah. Well, thanks for having me.
Of course. I can't wait to see what everybody thinks. Thank you, everybody, for listening. If you have any comments, please drop them below. Please reach out to Amber if you have any sleep questions. And I will look forward to seeing you all next Wednesday for the next episode
Thank you.
of the Working Moms Playbook Podcast. See ya.
Thank you so much for making it to the end of this episode of the Working Moms Playbook. And also, thank you so much for sharing this episode with any and every working mom who might benefit. Also, thank you for subscribing. It means so much to be able to continue to grow this village of working moms in a world where our villages can feel fairly small. Keep an eye out for next week's episode, always debuting on a Wednesday, and I can't wait to see you there.